Good news for landlords and bad news for tenants as apartment rents and occupancy reach record highs, even though it's the slow season. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's going over the fact that apartment rents and apartment occupancy across the entire country have reached record highs. And what that really is saying is that demand is high and supply is low, because that's, the only reason that, the rents would be going up so much and that, the occupancy would be so low right now. Now, this is a great thing for landlords, but unfortunately, what it does also mean is that inflation could be a big factor in this. Okay, so this could be part of a bad thing for the country overall as a whole. Now, before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think, okay? If you own apartments right now, are you seeing higher rents than you had seen before in the past? Are you seeing better occupancy? Are people staying longer? Are you able to fill those units up faster when they do become empty? I certainly am, okay? Every single unit I have that's, that I'm renting right now is full. And the rents that I'm getting as I, release them are much higher than the previous rents. So at least for me in my situation, this article holds very true. So this article is coming from CNBC.com, and it says, apartment rent and occupancy hit record highs, even as market enters its traditionally slow season. And let's see what it says. Apartment rent growth and occupancy set new records in November, yet another sign that the nation's housing market isn't following seasonal patterns this year. Rent growth and occupancy usually cool heading into winter. Apartment occupancy hit a new high of 97.5% in November, according to RealPage, a real estate technology firm or platform. The rate is up roughly 250 basis points from the long-term norm of about 95%, going back over the past 3 decades. So yeah, this year, occupancy overall throughout the entire country is sitting right around 97.5%, when normally it's sitting at about 95%. And that is quite significant, especially for the larger operators who own more units. But even for the smaller people like me who own just a few units, what you're seeing is you got tenants in there who are staying for a longer period of time. You can raise the rents on them and they'll still stay. And if they do leave, you can get new tenants, and you have a huge selection of tenants, good tenants that you can put into your property who are willing to pay these higher prices. So yeah, this isn't good for the tenants necessarily, but it definitely is good for landlords. I like reading about things that are good for landlords every once in a while. With all the eviction moratorium nonsense, it looked like landlords were going to be having a bad year, but hopefully with these new developments, we're able to make some of that money back that we lost. The annual increase in asking rents for new move-in leases hit 13.9% in November. Renewal lease rent growth usually climbs more slowly when there's turnover in a unit's occupant, but it has still been growing at 8% even during the later part of the year. So yeah, that's something good right there. Okay, so for new leases, they're charging in general, and keep in mind this is throughout the entire country, 13.9% higher than they were charging before. So fortunately, in places where there's no rent regulation or whatever, we're able to charge higher rents because people are willing to pay it, because there's still a steady amount of supply and steady demand for these rentals. So yeah, steady supply of tenants, not necessarily of units. And the tenants are fighting over the same units. So, it really goes back into some of the other videos I've done where I've said, hey, there is a shortage right now of houses to buy. There's a shortage right now of rentals for people to live in. So there's a sort of a housing crisis out there. And it's not good necessarily for landlords either, because hey, I'm having trouble finding properties to buy. How am I growing unless there's properties out there to buy? But at least for the units that I already own, I am going to be making higher rents on them when I do have turnover, or when the lease is renewed. The demand from renters is really strong, especially for the luxury product. As the economy has recovered, we've done a better job in high paying employment than we have in the lower paying jobs, said Greg Willett, chief economist at RealPage. And let me see here. They have a nice graph here that kind of just shows, how occupancy has grown. And I'll throw it up over here in the corner so that you can take a look at that graph. Interesting, but, it seems like since 2010, and that was back right after the 2008 recession. Occupancy levels were pretty low back then, but they've just been going steadily up until where they are right now. And, this is very, very good news for, the landlords. Okay. This is usually the time of year the landlords see lower occupancy and therefore offer incentives or cut lease prices. Demand, however, continues to outstrip supply in the rental market, as it is also in the for sale housing market. The rental market is actually stronger than the for sale market right now. The rent increases are something like I've never seen before in my life, so we are definitely pulling forward a lot of household formation, said John Burns, CEO of John Burns Real Estate Consulting. November rent prices were up 0.6% from October. While that is below the growth seen in the spring and summer months, it is notable because rent prices usually decrease in the fall months. Yeah, and that's generally very true. So it is always going to be harder to rent during the winter. At least I've noticed that, okay? So people, they don't want to be moving generally in the wintertime as often. Now, some people have to move, and so you're going to get some people who are still looking, but you're going to get a lot less demand than you will in the spring and the summertime. Now, the fact that the sales market is probably, the shortage of houses for sale and the difficulty of people finding houses for sale in a lot of markets is probably what's causing these rent increases, because people who were going to buy are now renting, and that's, means that the demand for rentals is way up as well. And that's why they say rent growth is actually outpacing housing sales price growth, and that's crazy to me. So yeah, I mean, great news for landlords. I know that there are still a lot of developers out there who are building a lot of these huge new apartment complexes, and I've seen just a ton of them all over Omaha, and it amazes me that, there's such demand even here in just, a small mid-tier Midwestern city for just tons of new large apartment complexes. But there is, and these places are filling up. So yeah, this is just quite a development. If you're a landlord right now, you're just, you should be eating it up, soaking it up. Now, if only we could find more properties to buy that we could rent out. That's the problem. What's driving demand? Rental demand is soaring due to the very high prices in the for sale market, which are up nearly 20% year over year. Also, fewer people are choosing to live with roommates. In certain markets, owner-occupant home buyers are being pushed out by usually all-cash investors. With this work from home and the stimulus and everything else, not enough Wi-Fi, too noisy in the house, a lot of people are living on their own, or they had two roommates and now they've got one. And that's been the big reason for the surge in apartment demand, added Burns. Household formation had been growing steadily before the pandemic, but then dropped off abruptly when COVID-19 hit the U.S., according to census figures. Within a few months, it began to climb again and has been accelerating in the last 6 months. Yeah, all those things, they're very, very true, okay? And, my belief, of course, is that the surge in house prices is the main factor, but I didn't even really think about the fact that, hey, we have people who were roommates before and, they're no longer want to be roommates and they're moving out on their own, maybe because in some places, they're afraid of spreading the virus, I guess. I don't know exactly why, but, that might be happening more often now. High prices in the for sale housing market are also presenting an opportunity for older homeowners who might want to cash out at the top of the market. They, in turn, are moving into luxury rentals, taking up more supply and keeping rents inflated. Well, I'll tell you one thing, that's a very good point. So you have some people who've owned their homes for a very long time, and they're seeing, just super high prices, and they're selling. So they just want to get out right now, and then they move into a rental instead of owning a house anymore. So yeah, that's a very interesting factor. But yeah, interesting article. I'm in agreement with most of it, and man, it's absolutely crazy. I hope that you as a landlord are doing better because of these factors. Okay, that you're making more rents in your units, and that you're keeping your tenants and your units occupied for a longer amount of time.